We have this from the post-millennial. Biden admin hands out millions of work permits to new illegal immigrants despite 180-day waiting rule. A 6-month waiting rule for asylum seekers applying for work permits was implemented in 1996 by the Immigration and Naturalization Service. But they're just doing it anyway. They're granting amnesty. They've given 3.3 million illegal immigrants work permits. Okay, our economy is in the gutter. People can't afford to eat food. Inflation is through the roof. This is going to crank it up to 11.
So I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying that it's about like murderous stuff. And I don't want people to make this weird thing. But like when the Nazis were clearly going to lose World War II, they decided to turn up the ovens and throw more and kill more Jews. It's almost as if they have the same thing. It's like the Biden administration's like, we're going to lose power, so we just have to shove as many people in as we possibly can.
No, they may be thinking we are going to lose.
It's not anything.
We need to shatter the country. We need to shatter the country so that we can control the portion that we've cracked off from it.
I think there is a level of that. I mean, the thing about I would include some unrestricted forms of legal immigration, but definitely illegal immigration is about, in my opinion, replacing the population that's here and making a collection of people who feel indebted to you and or as though you are the one who's going to be more likely to, potentially grant them whatever they need. And that's actually kind of abusive in my opinion. The Biden administration, I think you're totally right. I think they are looking down at the final, 6 months of his term and saying, we got to make stuff happen fast. One of the things I had always heard was that Biden would grant mass amnesty in the final months of his administration after the election, just to sort of give the next president a headache to deal with, and to be able to say, well, look at me, I'm more compassionate than the Republicans were. I think this is the kind of thing that should anger average Americans. I always accept the fact that the average American has a lot on their plate. It's extremely difficult to afford anything right now. Monitoring our nation's immigration system might not be the top priority, but any time the government has gone after you for your taxes or anything else, you should look at this and say, actually, they don't like me. They like these other people more. They like people who aren't from this country. And for the most part, economically, are probably not invested in our long-term national growth. They're invested in their individual security and also sending money to family members in other countries, which I don't see as a positive thing. The Biden administration was always going to be trying to virtue signal on these issues, and it's always going to come at the cost of the American citizen.
Any kind of policy that is essentially disregarding the law overall.
Laws don't apply to Joe Biden.
They apparently don't apply to anyone that's currently in the administration, and they don't matter to people that aren't in the administration, because they'll just make some stuff up if they want to toss you in jail. So, I mean, the fact that the law has kind of it's frustrating, because it is really, really hard to see it as any other way, and it's not something that's new either. It's not like this is some kind of thing that conservatives have been talking about or just now piping up about. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, conservatives were like, look, the media is against us. And everyone's like, no, they're not, blah, 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 blah. They're not against conservatives. They're not. And it was, the media doesn't have a bias. And then it was like, well, okay, maybe. Now we've got literally the government trying to put the actual leading candidate in jail. So
yeah, they'll print headlines like this, and then the next one will be, "This is proof that no one is above the law."
Unreal.
When it comes to Trump.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Trump fan, but I think that's absolutely ludicrous.
This system can't exist, right? I'm not saying it should or shouldn't. I'll repeat that, but it can't.
And the worst,
you can't make a car out of cheese. You just can't do it.
And I don't want to have any kind of like. It's not like I'm happy about this, but the U.S. is the global hegemon. So if the U.S. falls apart, the whole rest of the world is going to get wild. Yeah, wild.
And that's probably why China's been dumping U.S. dollars and buying gold like crazy.
100%. Gold,
financially, to be sure.
Gold and Bitcoin.
Gold is $337 or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, it's $2,300, $2,400 right now an ounce. 6 months ago, last year, it was under 2,000.
Yeah, 2,328. Wow.
Last year it was under 2,000, like 1,800, 1,900.
Ooh.
What's your take on the work permit situation?
Well, I don't acknowledge that, again, the federal government has any leeway when it comes to regulatory authority over immigration. But at the same time, this is clearly breaking the law. So when it comes to the law and arbitrary dictatorial powers that are akin to like a 17th century emperor, I guess I'll side with the former if I have to pick between those two. But again, you know, it's just clear how arbitrary this government is. It would make a lot of the founders blush when they're talking about condemning the British government, how arbitrary we are now, I think.
Do you think that's the challenge that libertarians have? Like you're saying, ideologically, I don't think that this should happen, but practically, this is the challenge we're facing. I feel like libertarians, and we see this played out on a lot of issues, have high ideals, but then they have to face reality, and sometimes
Absolutely.
it doesn't apply.
That's the libertarian quandary on a lot of things. That's to be sure.
So how do you reconcile with it?
Well, to reconcile it, I tried to dictate in my head what the moral extension to every issue is, and then just take things in a relative sense. I think some things are better than others. I would rather have like a constitutionally limited government that's actually adhered to compared to like, you know, an arbitrary despot, for instance. Although I'm not convinced, like, you know, I think that's kind of a utopian belief that there is a limited government, at least in the U.S., and I think the last decade is very big proof of it.
See, like we were having this conversation with Michael Rechtenwald, and I don't believe he gave us an actual answer or a sufficient one. And then I had the conversation with Michael Malice, and he gave a much more well-thought-out answer, but still one that I found lacking. We were talking about the privatization of police and the monopolization of power and violence. And I was saying that a private police force won't work. Police are they act as arbiters. They exert authority to enforce law, and then you are brought before a judge and, depending, a jury to figure out the extent of this. Now, the system is broken because there's too many people. There's not enough judges. There's not enough time in the court. No judge wants to deal with this. They're just going, next, I don't care. I don't want to deal with this. So now you've got these bail hearings that they're not really hearings anymore. They just say yes or no. We don't care. You get people in overcrowded jails. System is clearly not working. That being said, the idea of privatizing police literally makes no sense at all. And I've never been given any logical or coherent answer. Michael Rechtenwald's response was, you would just have different police departments and in your area, and you would choose which one to pay for. And I'm like, so what happens when, you know,
Jurisdiction.
The jurisdiction can't be answered. So Jim comes to, you've got two towns. You've got Springfield and Shelbyville. Jim from Springfield goes to Shelbyville and punches a guy in the face and then flees. Shelbyville calls their police. The police go to Springfield and say, that guy punched our guy in the face. And he goes, help, police, strangers from the town over, a private company are trying to kidnap me. And then his police confront those police. Michael Malice's response was, mafias negotiate all the time. It's like the mob. And I'm like, and the mob also would go into people's neighborhoods and say, we are the protection racket in this town, pay us or else. And if you don't, they start smashing up all of your stuff until you pay up. So that doesn't make sense. You can, in the scale of government we have now, there is no logical system in which we say different factions of armed, authorized individuals will enforce laws based on how we want them to be in our jurisdiction.
But Tim, it happens all the time today in terms of like insurance disputes. For instance, if you have like State Farm and Allstate and we have dispute, you know, it goes to our insurance providers and they...
Are people happy with their insurance companies right now?
I don't know, but I don't think
No,
they're
the
happy
answer is
with
no,
the
they're
cops
not.
either.
They're absolutely not happy.
Cops too, in many cases.
Agreed.
Right?
And so the issue is, this system doesn't work. Let's do another system that doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. I think if we're going to be talking about solutions to the problems we're seeing, there should at least be a sound, logical, here's the map, here's the morality, this works, or it doesn't. But the idea of saying insurance companies negotiate all the time and mafias negotiate all the time, it's like everyone hates their insurance company. Insurance companies deny claims all the time. You're going to call your private police force and say, a guy robbed me, and they're going to say, and you're going to be like, what am I paying you for? And they're going to say, then don't. What are you going to do about it? If you don't pay us, then you've got nothing. And you're going to go, I guess I won't pay you then. And then what? Then you have literally nothing in any circumstance. Now, of course, I love this meme where a guy says, where would we be if we didn't have police after someone robbed you? The meme is like, how could we survive without police? After getting robbed, you need someone to tell you, what am I going to do about it? right? That's the argument. But there still are circumstances where police do things. And we have problems with quotas. We have problems with cops giving tickets when people didn't do anything wrong. Sure, all that stuff. But most interactions out of hundreds of millions are not negative people have with police. So the issue ultimately comes down to libertarians argue there should be police, just not nationalized, or not the hierarchy of jurisdictions. And it should be voluntary. And then you run into the problem of private companies will try to cut costs at every corner and deny you claims and do their best to make sure you keep paying without them giving you anything. So then you run into the jurisdictional crisis of, I watched a viral video today of city police and sheriffs were getting into a fight over jurisdiction because the sheriff didn't inform the local cops what was going on. Those things happen. But then you have higher branches of government at the state level that oversees all of them to prevent shootouts between two private organizations. So like even in a circumstance where you have private police, it ends with them mandating you pay by force. Like fire departments didn't used to be public, they were private. You bought an emblem, you put it on your house, and then if there's a fire, they'd rush out, see the emblem, they'd put the fire out. No emblem, they don't. And then it became public over time because the monopolization of the system, not because people were forced to do it. Everyone just kind of agreed like, well, yeah, you got to have a fire department. The problem is if my house burns down and I don't pay for the emblem, then your house burns down next because the fire spreads. So it's like, no, we have to have fire and safety and security. I certainly don't agree with taxing everybody 56% or whatever. But yeah, I don't see a reality in which we would allow non-citizens to come into this country, work and do whatever they want and displace the labor. And I'll put it really simply, actually. Let's cut it all the way down. The roads. Everyone's favorite argument when it comes to libertarians. If me and my buddy put together a road and we build it, and then you start allowing illegal immigrants to come onto the property, and I say stop, and then they're like, deal with it. And I'm like, I got to pay now out of my pocket for security because you are bringing these people onto my road? Now my costs go up because you are violating my rights. So why should I have to deal with that? I like the idea of limited government, but I like the idea of adjudication where I can say, hey, we have an agreement that you don't bring these people in because when they use my roads, there's wear and tear. We pay for it. We maintain it. We allow people to use it within limited reason, but you let people come on. Now it's destroying it. I'm going to ask the court to tell you to stop. That seems to work pretty well, in my opinion.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe and we'll see you all there.